So I just finished The Woman in the Dunes by Kobo. It started out very humorous. I thought it was going to be sort of a funny, silly one, but it ended up being very, very dark. So it's quite short, so I'll just go over the plot quickly. It involves this man who is a school teacher, and he's gone out hunting for insects because he's sort of an entomologist in his spare time. And he doesn't really tell anyone where he's going. He goes off by himself into this village that's pretty isolated because there's sand dunes there, and it turns out this village is almost overrun by these sand dunes. They're massive. They're threatening the entire village, and he sort of ends up staying too late. The bus to pick him up has already gone, so he has to stay the night. And the villagers offer him a stay in this house at the bottom of this hole. So there are these holes in the sand dunes where people live, and it is their job to shovel up a whole bunch of the sand to prevent the town from being overrun, which is kind of silly. But anyway, so he goes down into this hole and stays with this woman. The next day, he wakes up and finds he's unable to leave. He's trapped there, and he tries to escape. He tries to climb out. He cannot. He's trapped there, and the woman seems okay with it. She sort of accepted her fate that she's trapped there. She makes excuses that she had a husband and a child who had died from a sand avalanche, and so she's choosing to live there, but they're very much trapped. And so he tries various methods of getting out and escaping. He goes on sort of a hunger strike. He ties up the woman, and he refuses to do any work. I guess that's not a hunger strike. He refuses to do any work until they let him out. And he's like, well, I'll let your town be sort of overrun by sand then. Like, you need me, let me out. But they withhold the water from him, and so he gets to the point where he gives in and starts working again just so he'll get water. He does manage to escape. At one point, he drugs the woman and creates a rope and sort of a grapple, and manages to pull himself out. But as he's running away, he gets caught in quicksand and has to cry out for help, and he gets sort of captured and put back. And he continues to sort of work away in the hole with this woman, and he doesn't fall in love with her, but he does have sort of feelings for her, more of an attraction. He does feel an attraction to her, like they have sex. But like when he runs out and escapes, he thinks like, oh, I'll buy her a radio and give it to her, but he doesn't really feel anything for her beyond that. And at the very end of the book, she gets pregnant, but there's complications with the pregnancy, and it seems like the pregnancy is not gonna go through. But she has to get taken out to go to the hospital, and when she does, they leave the rope ladder down, and so he climbs out and he sort of looks around, and he goes and he looks at the sea, which is right next to the hole. And then he looks back into the hole and he sees this contraption he made. So he's built this sort of contraption, this trap to try and trap crows, which didn't work. And then he discovered that it's actually creating a kind of a little well. It's pulling up water into it. And so he's like, oh, if I can get my own water, then I can sort of convince them to let me go if I can hold out now that I have my own water. Anyway, so he looks back at this contraption and he sees it broke. So he rushes back down into the hole and he starts fixing and working away at it. And he starts thinking like, I don't have to escape right now. Like I can just plan to escape sometime later. And I have to tell someone about this invention I made. One of the other villagers will probably think it's interesting. And then it just ends. And the sort of final page is a missing persons report where he's been gone for 7 months. And so he's just declared missing. And that's it. But in terms of sort of what does this all mean? What's the point of it? I think it's a very dark sort of view on life itself and the sort of the meaningless of life and all these things we do in life. I took it in a very Marxist way, where the sort of villagers are the capitalists forcing him to work, and when he doesn't work, they starve him out. Because in a capitalistic world, if you do not work, you will starve to death. And so he's being forced to do this sort of pointless, meaningless task that doesn't give him any pleasure and is very hard, just for the good of these villagers. He does not even benefit from it, and he's only being paid in like food and water. Now, him and the woman do get paid a little extra if they do extra sort of side jobs, which they do. And if they can save up so much and they work so hard, they can afford a radio. And that very much felt to me like in capitalist societies, like you take extra jobs and you work extra hard, then you can get this tiny little bit of amusement and entertainment to sort of keep you satisfied, keep you working. And when he escapes and flees, it's, to me, that was, you can't escape the system. You're going to, he gets caught in quicksand. If you sort of try and get out of the capitalist system in this world, you will die. And so in the end, he has to call out for help to the capitalist system, who they pull him back and put him back in his hole, back to work. And there's even this sort of a really, really dark, horrible part where he goes and calls to the people on the top of the hill, the villagers, and says, hey, look, just let me out of the hole for a bit. I just want to see the sea. Like, just let me look at the ocean and smell the sea breeze. And they're like, sure, we'll let you, but you have to do it with the woman in front of us. And he's like, what? And they're like, come on, do it. And the woman's like, I'm not doing that. That's horrible. And so he grabs her and tries to rape her. And like, I've read a lot of rape scenes in books, which is kind of weird and horrible thing to say. But this was the first one that the woman fought back and won. So he tries to like rape her, and all the men are cheering up top, and even some women come out and they're sort of cheering on, like someone's putting on a show for us. But the woman fights back and sort of beats the man to a pulp, and then leaves. But that scene made me think of how the worker gives up their body totally and has sort of no shame and no autonomy for the capitalist overlords. But that's just a super Marxist view of it. I don't know if the author's a Marxist and saw it that way, although this was published in the 1960s in Japan, which maybe that's a bit too late for, I think Marxism was probably, I don't know, I don't actually know. But yeah, I think it was just about this sort of pointlessness of life and how hopeless everything is, and how we have no autonomy and we're sort of stuck, and we can try our best and work to get out. But in the end, the only thing to do is to sort of acquiesce and to accept our fate. He goes back into the hole at the end. He's still thinking like, oh, someday I'll escape. But really, he's sort of given up at that point, even though he doesn't admit it to himself. He's become comfortable in his hole in the sand dunes. So yeah, not an ending I expected. I don't know what I expected going into it. Like I said, at first it seemed really funny. He was talking about different insects and different sand and evolution. It was very, very scientific. But yeah, anyways. So that was The Woman in the Dunes by Abe Kobo.